Surprise! Hey everybody, as you can see, I'm in the process of moving apartments. This is going to be the last video filmed in this apartment, so get your last fill of my beautiful wood panel wall over there. I'm going to miss it dearly. I've already packed up all of my planned video topics already, so I ran out to a thrift store and grabbed just anything that looked interesting, and unfortunately, that's The Fairy King. This is a direct-to-home video release from 1998, also known as the Fairy King of R and Beings. It's got some kids on the box. I can already kind of tell I'm gonna have a problem with 90s cut here. Then there's this fairy hiding behind a tree, I guess. It could also just be a child raised by animals in the woods, I don't know. These up here though, definitely fairies. And hey look, it also stars Malcolm McDowell, who you might recognize from the Lunchables Uploaded commercial. I don't know anything about this movie. It just looked mildly interesting, so I picked it up. Let's dive in.
Long ago, before the time of man, there lived a fairy king whose name was R.
The opening scene of the movie is a grandmother telling her grandchildren a story about fairies.
Finn McCool was usually a bad giant, but in this case he was pleased to help the people of R.
The children seem enthralled with the story, but holy crap is this a boring opening scene.
He sent the piece of land sailing through the air across the sea. Cool.
Aside from a few blurry illustrations and some sound effects, this really just feels like a grandma reading a story. Not your grandma, just a grandma. I tuned out super quick and got very distracted by a boom mic.
Wait and see. So, R took his people to the new land, and he made ready for a huge celebration to which he invited the giant. Thumbelina was dressed in fairest silks with dainty flowers for a crown, ready to be the giant's bride, and waited at the gates with R and all his people as Finn McCool waded from the Emerald Isle to the new land he had made. Well, the giant...
Then Grandma dies, and we speed quickly into the next scene. The only reason I know that Grandma dies is because it says so on the back of the box. If I didn't read this, I might have just thought that she turned into a car or something. This is the Preston family. Mom, Dad, Kyle, and Evie. They're all in a car, because the only thing kids love more than long over-the-shoulder shots of blurry children's books are long shots of cars driving and driving and driving. And as they drive, they recall dead Grandma's stories about fairies. She must have really talked about them a lot.
Remember in the story, when you cross the bridge, you have to say hi to the fairies or they give you bad luck.
Daddy, I saw one!
Oh, and fairies are real. The movie just kind of casually tosses that in there, but fairies are real. Finally, the family arrives at Grandma's house, the main location of the film, as Jimmy Neutron spies on them from the bushes. Despite Grandma not being around anymore, her house is still well maintained, and... Oh my god, Malcolm McDowell is grabbing children.
Hey, let them go! Who are you? You shouldn't be here. Let them go.
This is our house.
And look at Dad. I mean, that sure does look like a father trying to protect his children from a child-grabbing stranger to me. Oh my god, let go of my kids. Let my kids go. Let them go. Fairies are real.
Who are you?
I'm the caretaker here.
What the hell do you think you were doing?
I'm doing my job. I'm doing my job.
Malcolm is the groundskeeper of the property, and if his first special skill is child grabbing, then his second special skill is giving extremely vague warnings.
You just stay away from my kids. Come on, dog.
Only death lives here.
The family quickly realizes that Grandma wasn't just an author of fairy-related stories. Grandma was a fairy freak, with fairy statues and fairy paintings all over the place.
It's the fairies.
Ooh, what a horrible picture.
That all seems to make a bit more sense when we find out that the house is located directly next to a swarm of fairies.
Don't worry. We'll save you.
What?
We promised Grandma.
So apparently the fairies need to be saved. I think it's possible that the story at the beginning of the movie was dropping some important hints, but Evie was the only person in the room not distracted by the boom mic, so she's the only one who knows what's going on. Despite seeing multicolored, glowing, flying fairies in broad daylight though, the parents remain oblivious.
Fireflies.
Look at right there, right there.
It's incredible.
Right there, 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 right there.
I should also mention that there's this subplot about Dad being sick with a cough, which explains why he's watching his health.
What is this?
An English breakfast.
I'm gonna get fat. I'm gonna get fat.
Evie and Kyle begin chasing fairies around, bumping into Malcolm, who takes a break from raking some dirt leaves to issue yet another vague warning.
You shouldn't be playing in these woods. If you do, they'll be watching you. They like to eat small children. Doing my job.
Vagueness is unfortunately pretty common throughout the film. It just kind of sprinkles breadcrumbs of information at you, but never really tells you what's going on.
I didn't want to worry Dad, so he'd want to leave.
But he said the monsters will get us.
Evie, he's just trying to scare us. It's just a dumb story in a book Grandma wrote. Look, hasn't Dad changed? Isn't it more fun? Isn't it better here?
As best I can tell, the Preston family is visiting Grandma's house from overseas because America was less fun and their dad sucked.
You'll be needing me.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We'll remember that. Leave your phone number at the front door. Bye. Thank you.
He's also sick, maybe, from a cough. Evie just wants to save the fairies from something.
We'll save you.
And honestly, at times it seems like she's psychic because she's the only one that knows what's happening.
It's the fairies from Grandma's story.
What?
You know, Tumbleine and the fairy folk of Ar. They're trapped underground.
Evie, you're so stupid.
And Mom is there too.
I think it rains too much on these people.
Also, everybody in the town is super weird around the newcomers because that's something the writer probably saw in a different movie and thought it might fit in well here. The first half of the movie wastes a lot of time on the fairies dicking around with Malcolm McDowell, who, aside from a small case of child grabbing, doesn't seem to have really done anything wrong. Things start to pick up a bit when Dad and Kyle start looking around for a mine that's supposed to be on the property.
Well, it's gotta be right here somewhere. We must be standing on it.
Dad?
What is that? That's gold. Kyle, that's gold. Where? Here, come here. Take the map. Look right around here. Nancy! Nancy!
Yeah, good thing he spotted that single piece of gold floating in the river there. Good eye, Kyle.
Nancy, look at this.
Why? What is it?
Gold. Kyle found it down in the creek.
Gold?
Yes.
You dug this out of the creek?
Supposedly there's a gold mine here.
You dug this out of the creek?
Supposedly there's a gold mine here somewhere. We haven't found any trace of it yet.
What is it?
Gold. Kyle found it down in the creek.
You dug this out of the creek?
Supposedly.
What is it?
But we found a map of the church. It said Firefly Mine.
Firefly?
Do you remember what your mother said?
Fireflies, remember?
You know what? I sure don't remember. I sure wish I knew what Grandma said about fireflies, but I guess I don't matter in this equation. I'm just the guy watching the movie. After 20 minutes of slow nothingness, we suddenly learn that Grandma left the family a gold mine.
Nancy, she's left us a gold mine.
What is it?
But as exciting as that sounds, nobody knows where the mine is located.
Dad, I found it. I found the mine.
You found
Where?
that mine.
Where?
What is it?
Okay, well, that's great and all, but how about you try and seem excited about it, huh, kid?
Dad, I found it. I found the mine.
Dad, I found a gold mine. We're rich. Dad's got a good case of gold fever and wastes no time in pursuing the ore. Unfortunately for him, the mine is flooded, and I'm no expert in unflooding mines, but that doesn't seem like something a typical family could take care of.
Yay, it worked!
Well, of course. One conveniently located water pump later, as well as one night later.
Want to get under the covers with me?
The Prestons begin to dig into the mine.
Let go of me! Stop it! Let go! Dad! Dad! Had a bad dream.
Dad! I had a nightmare. I love this scene because it shows some really great parenting. Mom and Dad are just like, get back to bed. Everybody, go back to bed.
Just a dream, Kyle.
Sleep. Come on, darling, lie down and go to sleep. Evie, back to bed. Okay, back to sleep. Come on, darling, lie down.
Can I sleep with you?
I think you should leave this mine alone. It's old and dangerous.
Relax. We're gonna be fine.
The next day, Kyle is the first one to stumble into the mine, but when he hits the water, he starts to flounder because, I don't know, I guess he can't swim? The water isn't even up to Dad's waistline. Just stand up, kid. He literally pushes him back underwater, and then they just both stand up.
It's okay. It's okay. I got you. I got you. I got you.
Before the two head back to the surface, they see a sign that references a mining accident that happened forever ago.
The gateway to hell.
Apparently 2 people died in the mine, and then they closed it, and then they reopened the mine, and a bunch of monsters came out, so they closed it again. 200 years later, and people still think that there's monsters in the underwater mine. Unfortunately for Dad, the mining trip seems to have made him even more sick. So sick, in fact, that he winds up in the hospital where the doctor is all, it's my professional diagnosis that he's sick. He's very sick, so very, very sick.
I'm afraid there's no easy way to say this. Your husband's very sick, Mrs. Preston.
He's gonna die soon because he's just so sick.
There's not much we can do except help him stay as comfortable as possible.
Well, what are you saying?
Sick with what? The sickness, of course. He's just so very sick.
Your father is...
Your husband's very sick, Mrs. Preston.
He's very sick.
Is he going to die like Grandma?
Then, in a turn that seems pretty uncharacteristic for a fairy movie, the family prays to God.
I want you to pray. I want you to pray to God. And ask him for a miracle.
Oh wait, I guess God is a fairy? I'm not sure what they're trying to tell me here. Kyle keeps having these nightmares that explained what happened in the mine so many years ago. Something with Jawas and fairies and dynamite. This movie is so freaky. I would have been terrified of this as a kid. Like, I wouldn't have known what was going on, of course, but I would have been terrified nonetheless. Kyle heads back down to the mines after his dream, and for some reason Evie is there already and her arm is all jacked up. But that's no problem for God. Amazing grace, how sweet. Okay, so here's where we stand. Let's take a quick moment to make sure we're all on the same page before everything starts to wrap up. Kyle and Evie want to open the mine. Now, this would have confused me when I was a kid because they're clearly already in the mine, but apparently they have to dig a bit further to get to the Fairy King because the Fairy King is the only one that can heal Dad because Evie said so, and quite frankly, that's good enough for me.
She cured your arm.
This is different. Only the Fairy King has enough power to save Dad.
The townsfolk are being dicks to the family because they think there's monsters in the mine because of a long-standing local myth. Dad is sick with the coughs and he's going to die soon. Malcolm is the late grandmother's cousin, which is completely irrelevant to the story, as is the rest of his role. And Mom is there. Mom is there, and she's almost always acting confused.
What was that? Where is it?
What do you think you're doing?
What now? What is it?
Kyle rides into town to look for some help and to bribe the locals with spray-painted gold. I mean gold. That is real gold. It is very real gold. Real. Gold. The shopkeep does what any rational person would do and tells the small child looking for help to get the hell out.
Go, get out of my shop, go!
And then these kids, who are appearing for the first time in the film, just decide to chase him for some reason. So that means random kids decided to chase the other random kid, most likely because one of the producers saw motocross the night before and was like, hey, we should put a bike chase in our fairy movie. The bike chase scene isn't even that good, except for when this kid falls over. Oh, and check out this sweet move by Kyle. Oh, yeah. Then all of a sudden, everybody starts crashing and driving into the pond for no apparent reason. I don't know. So nobody in the town will help Kyle, but we already knew this. I mean, if there's one thing in this movie I'm sure about, it's that the townspeople suck.
I've got no time to waste on you. Get out of here. Go on, clear it out, kid.
Motivated by the fact that he's about to die from extreme cough, Dad decides to help out on his children's adventure, even though he doesn't believe the story behind it.
All right. Let's go save us some berries, huh?
Oh yeah, good line, Dad. Real badass. Oh hey, look, it's Malcolm McDowell. I'm sure he's gonna make a wise decision around these children.
Hey! Now, you come with me, I'll show you. Look at the face of a demon!
Mom decides to take the family home tomorrow because America is much better at dealing with these kinds of things.
You'll be better off in the States. They're better equipped for this sort of thing.
But not before a bunch of fireflies get together for a big ol' sex party on Dad's chest.
What do you think you're doing?
Now that everybody believes in fairies, it's the perfect time for a Kyle freakout, and just watch him flex his acting muscles here.
Kyle, please! Why am I dead? Why? I can save him! Oh, I know, Kyle!
So now the whole family is getting in on the mining action, though it's a lot more like moving small to medium-sized rocks by hand action. I'm kind of surprised that this is what's been holding back the almighty Fairy King for hundreds of years. Malcolm, who is trying to reflood the mine, ends up pushing a minecart back down, which bursts through the wall and causes the mine to re-collapse. Then he leads a group of local townsfolk onto private property to try and close the mine, I guess. Now comes the best part of the film. Kyle finds himself trapped in the mine while Mom and Evie are able to escape.
Calm down. Would somebody take her? Mrs. Preston, just let me go.
And of course, with this big of a crowd of people around, surely someone will help Dad save his child.
Somebody help me. Please help me.
Help him, please! Please!
I can't believe this. Your stupid superstitions are going to keep you from saving a child's life. Oh, you fools. All right, look, a tragedy happened here. It was a long time ago, but you're making a worse one right now.
Motivated by Dad's begging, I mean, he does more begging than he does actually trying to help his son.
It was a long time ago!
The townspeople begrudgingly decide to save a dying child. And you probably already know what's coming up next. Kyle is saved, but Dad is finally succumbing to his deadly cough.
Okay, get that, make room for him. Get him some room, please.
And who's got the cure for the common cough? Well, the Fairy King, of course. After he saves Dad, he transforms into somebody. I don't know if I'm supposed to know who this guy is, but he's definitely wearing a necklace made out of the tops of the pull tabs of soda cans, you know? And then the movie just kind of ends.
We stayed on the Isle of Man. Dad takes Evie and me fishing a lot with him. Tess found no sign of the sickness in his body. I'm glad we freed the goblins so they can go home. Though Evie says she still plays with the fairies at the bottom of the garden. I guess it's nice to know that there's still a little magic left in the world.
The Fairy King of R was not a good movie, but I don't doubt that there are people out there that have some sort of attachment to it. It's a typical children's film, not trying to do anything special or magical at all outside of some fairies, and whose message of don't be prejudiced kind of gets lost along the way.
That's what really scares you. Anyone who's different. Anyone who doesn't fit in with your limited knowledge at world. You're all just as bad. All of you. Prejudiced.
I feel like the movie might have been better if fairies ended up not being real. I mean, it's not like the townspeople were completely incorrect. There were otherworldly creatures trapped down in that mine. But I guess it was kind of fun trying to figure out if Dad was cursed by the Fairy King. I mean, was he just slowly dying this whole time, or did opening up the cave put a curse on him? Well, actually, it was all explained very early on in the movie by a single line.
And take it easy. No strenuous exercise. No strenuous exercise. No strenuous exercise.
It's not the fairies making him sick, kids. Your dad is just a stupid fart, and it's hard to feel sorry for him when you know that he's the one making himself more sick. Maybe the real moral of this story is listen to your doctor. Anyway, that was The Fairy King. Not my best thrift store pickup, but it was still a little bit fun to watch, if for no other reason than to make fun of it along the way. Oh, and the bonus features, it's literally just a list of the 3 actors' filmographies. Like, this is the most boring bonus feature I've ever seen. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this look at The Fairy King. I had a good time with it, but now it's time for me to go. Say goodbye to this apartment. I gotta get back to work on moving.